Listen, let's start there. I was just pissed, and I was upstairs in those 14-hour days in the Rock, and I'm watching TV, and there's a guy from CNN standing on the boardwalk in Asbury Park, and 10 hours earlier I told everybody, get off the islands, get back to safer ground, and I'd said it really nicely. It's in your best interest to pursue a safer place during this very dangerous time. And then I watched this guy from CNN stand on the boardwalk in Asbury Park, and he didn't bother me too much, but behind him, there were people building sandcastles. There was a guy putting sunscreen on his wife or girlfriend, and there was another guy grabbing his surfboard and running out to the water. And I said, who are these idiots? And then they said, okay, it's time for your press conference. So I went down there. I figured I had to take a much more Jersey approach to the problem. So I want to thank you all for being here. It's been about 2 months since we were in the grips of Hurricane Irene. And it's a historic storm, a 100-year storm, in terms of especially the flooding that it brought to our state. And one of the things that was most astonishing to me in dealing with this incredibly serious natural disaster for our state was the thousands and thousands of volunteers who stepped up in incredible ways across the state to be part of the team to help protect, first and foremost, our people, and then our property, and finally, our psyche. That during times like this, it is so easy to become despondent. And so many people that I met during that time had become despondent. But the thing that helped to raise them out of despondency was not me. It was their neighbors and their friends who were there for them, who came and helped them start to clean out their houses, who invited them to their home for dinner, who said, let me take your children and take care of them while you're dealing with things at home. Those simple but powerful acts of friendship are what helped to lift many folks out of that state of despondency. State and national service organizations activated volunteers also, both inside the state and from all across the country, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned before. And it seemed to me that in the aftermath of this, after the first week or 10 days after the storm hit, I did not want all of that goodness to go unthanked. People say that the activity that we participated in is a thankless job. I don't believe that's true. I'm sure that many of you out here got many thank yous from people in your communities for the things that you did. But it did seem to me that we could make sure, in case you hadn't, that it wasn't a thankless job. That we, myself, the Lieutenant Governor, the Colonel of State Police, Major General of the New Jersey National Guard, and all the members of my cabinet who participated are sitting here in the front row, and our main liaison for FEMA, who is here as well, that all of us had the opportunity to say thank you. This is one of those ideas that seems really good to me when I think about it, and then I tell my staff, and they look completely horrified about how they're going to pull all this together in the short period of time that I gave them to do it. So let me also thank the staff of the Governor's office who did an extraordinary job to put this ceremony together today. Because of what all of you did, thousands of people were sheltered, fed, until they could return home. And it was no small accomplishment. Think about some of these statistics. Nearly 1.5 million people were evacuated in an orderly process from our shore's barrier islands. Now, imagine that with almost no mention in the media at all about traffic, about accidents, about arguments, about mayhem. People orderly and quickly evacuated themselves. Nearly 1.5 million people, both New Jersey residents and people from out of state who were here on vacation from the barrier islands after my subtle and calm request. We sheltered about 25,000 people during that period of time in shelters set up across the state of New Jersey. Those folks were kept warm and dry and fed until they could return home. 26 Red Cross and Salvation Army mobile feeding units were dispatched throughout the state, distributing about 420,000 meals and 3,000 gallons of water. More than 10,000 physical and mental health service consultations were provided by disaster recovery consultants to those who had been injured either physically or psychologically. About 21,000 cleanup kits were passed out throughout the state, and nearly 5,000 comfort kits for those who had lost all those things that help you to keep yourself clean and dry and comfortable. More than 45,000 relief items such as mops and brooms and tarps and work gloves and shovels and rakes and trash bags were distributed to folks across the state who, once they took a deep breath and assessed the damage to their property, decided the next important thing for them to do was to begin the cleanup. And for many of them, most of the things they would use to clean up have been washed away as well. And so we helped by distributing those things, as did you. There's so many things that happened during this time that I hesitate to mention a few of them, but there's some of them that are really so amazing that I want to mention them to you today. The Notre Dame Chapel in Cedar Knolls provided assistance to a 90-year-old couple whose home had been devastated by the flooding and mold and weren't able to move back home. A volunteer from the Notre Dame Chapel and his friends went into the home, did major sheetrocking and repair, and the couple was able to move back home within days after the damage was done. The American Red Cross made a special commitment to the people of Paterson during the worst floods that city has seen in its history. One of their shelters located in Eastside High School provided activities for children and for adults with special needs. Young people from the community contributed their books and clothing. Kmart stepped forward to provide towels and cleaning materials. McDonald's provided breakfast and dinner. And within a week, alternative housing was located for all the shelter residents, but the Red Cross stepped up and those private organizations stepped up to keep them comfortable and safe during the worst floods in the history of the city of Paterson. A single mom and her 2 children were staying at another shelter in Paterson because of the flooding. The mom worked nights, and she was worried that if she didn't go to work, she'd lose her job. But on the other hand, if she wasn't at the shelter, she'd lose her bed space. This shelter, committed to supporting each and every one of the evacuees in their care, set aside cots for this woman so that she could go to work with her children and return to the shelter in the morning. The cots were put in a quiet area so that she and her children could sleep during the day while the other evacuees were eating their meals. This was not something that was done, the sheltering, in a haphazard or in a way that made people feel as if they were just another number. For these folks in Paterson, they accommodated their particular needs so that their worries wouldn't be compounded by the loss of work or the inability to sleep. These are some of the compassionate acts by volunteers across the state of New Jersey. And at one of the developmental centers used in Burlington County, evacuees arrived with pets, but no pet food, and with infants, but no formula or diapers. The staff braved the weather to collect what supplies they could on their own time and with their own money to assure the safety and the comfort of the individuals in the shelter. That's the true meaning of selfless volunteerism, and those are two examples. In a time of crisis, your efforts to get people to be safe, both ahead of, during, and after the storm, and to clean up and recover in its aftermath, rebuilt and saved lives, no question in my mind. And so today, we want to take the time to say thank you. You know, when we were going through this, it was an interesting experience for my family because we actually happened to be on vacation that week at the Jersey Shore. And after I delivered my line, I then went back to Island Beach State Park to see my family. And I saw my 11-year-old son, Patrick, first when I pulled in the driveway of the house. And I got out of the car, and he said, "Dad, I can't say the word you said, but we're off the beach." And we packed up that night and left and got our family back home, and I went back to the Regional Operations Center in down here in Mercer County. And what struck me the entire time was that the efforts that all of you were doing, all of us were getting credit for. Now, we organized and planned and hopefully as well as we possibly could executed those plans. But those plans would have been meaningless without all of you. And so I wanted to have this celebration today to celebrate all that you have accomplished and achieved through your simple acts of kindness and selflessness. And so when we reached out to your towns, to your counties, to your organizations and asked you to come down here today for this celebration, it was because the Lieutenant Governor and I wanted to be able to look all of you in the eye and say thank you, personally, for not only how well you served your neighbors and your friends and many people that I'm sure you had never met before, but also to say thank you for how great you made our state look to America. You know, all too often, our state is portrayed in the media by things like The Sopranos, The Real Housewives of New Jersey, and God forbid, the Jersey Shore. And I don't know why you applauded that, but what I will say is I want to remind all of you, since I have a whole room full of great New Jerseyans, just to remind you one thing about that show. Those people are all from New York. And I've told Governor Cuomo he can have them back anytime he wants. He's a smart man, though. He doesn't seem anxious to take them back. But instead, over the course of those days of Hurricane Irene, what the country saw about New Jersey is what's really true. That we are filled with bright and talented citizens who are tough and rugged and hard-edged, but also caring and compassionate and giving. That we stand up for each other and to any challenge. And the country saw why they pay so much attention to New Jersey, really. You see all these shows that become so famous and successful. The reason they're watched throughout the country is really simple and became readily apparent during the coverage of the hurricane. For all those people who don't live in New Jersey, after they just experience a little bit of us, they can't get enough and they're sad they don't live here themselves. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being exactly that type of New Jerseyan. Thank you for caring as much about your neighbors and your friends as you do about your own property and your own family. And thank you for making me so incredibly fortunate to be the leader of a state so proud and a people so good. It's the greatest honor and privilege that I know I'll ever have in my life. And I wanted to bring you here today to say thank you for what you've done, and thank you for the honor and privilege of being able to serve with you and to lead this extraordinary state. Thank you all very much.